And now to the race in New York's 19th congressional district. A Siena College poll released last month shows Congressman Chris Gibson with a 24-point lead over his Democratic challenger, Sean Eldridge. Gibson, who is seeking his third term as a retired Army colonel, a veteran of the First Gulf War, Kosovo, and the war in Iraq. He later taught politics at West Point and sits on the Agriculture and Armed Services committees. He spoke with RFL about his runoff for re-election.
We saw some poll numbers. We're still waiting for verification on it. Throughout every number I'd seen, you were up comfortably between 20 and 24 points. This last poll has it just outside the margin of error at 10 points. What are your internal numbers showing as to how close your race is?
We still feel in a very strong position. Our numbers, I think, match the independent poll, which has this in a very strong place for us. We think we've earned that. You know, you take a look at the representation I brought to Washington, D.C., bringing people together to get things done for us. We took their voices, their ideas, brought them down to Washington into the committee, and we got them enacted into law. And I think, you know, the strong support that we're getting in these polls reflect the fact that I'm earning the support of Republicans, independents, and a fair number of Democrats as well.
Well, to that point, National Journal once ranked you as probably the most moderate member of the Republican Party, at least certainly in the House. And there was a recent comment this week from former Senator and Republican presidential nominee Bob Dole talking about his grand old party. And he said in part that he criticized Republicans for leaning so far right that they've moved beyond being traditional Republican conservatives like he was when he was in office. He said, but they've moved beyond tradition, and I don't know what they're for. It's easy to be against things, but what are you for? You've had other colleagues of yours who say that compromise is the same thing as capitulation. I'm curious, as a moderate, by Republican standards at least, how do you feel? Has your party left you at times? Has the Tea Party caused more harm than good for Republicans?
Well, actually, I've seen those that have been unreasonable on both sides of the aisle. There were some that were thinking we would never get a farm bill. I never believed that. I always thought we'd get a farm bill. But I had to deal with those on the far right and the far left that weren't willing to come together. And, you know, ultimately, at the end of the day, we got it done. And the same thing with the budget. You know, we hadn't had a budget in 5 years. It was very important that we get a budget, to replace sequester. It was important for our domestic priorities. It was also important for our national security. And this group that I'm part of, a no labels group, it's about 90 members of Congress. We're in both parties. We brought forward a simple bill. No budget, no pay. And if we didn't perform, we didn't get paid as a member of Congress. The American people supported it, and we passed it in the Congress. The president signed it into law, and that helps set the conditions for the House, controlled by the Republicans, and the Senate, controlled by Democrats, to come together to get that budget that we enacted at the end of last year. I'm a proud Republican, but I'm an American first. And I work for 750,000 people up here in upstate New York, and I listen to them very carefully, and I fight for them down in Washington. I'm proud of that, and my record reflects it. You've alluding to that. I'm the second most independent Republican in the United States House of Representatives, according to the Washington Post and according to Open Congress. And according to Open Congress, their website has me tied as the second most effective legislator in the U.S. House, and that's simply because, at the end of the day, the people want to see us get our business done.
Now, before you joined the craziness that is Washington, you were a longtime member of our military. In fact, when you retired, you were the rank of Army Colonel, and you saw action. And I'm curious, you've seen a lot of folks on Capitol Hill be very vocal on both sides as to what our involvement should and shouldn't be. I'm curious how far you think our involvement should be. Senators Graham and McCain most recently said that we should have more boots on the ground as it relates to Iraq. We should have a more prominent role as it relates to Syria. Are you comfortable with our position militarily now in the Middle East, or do you think we need to have a more physical presence there than we do?
Well, I'm not comfortable. I did not vote to arm the Syrian rebels. I believe they're militarily incompetent and politically untrustworthy. Look, I want everyone to know who may be watching this evening that their safety is of paramount concern to me. Obviously, 29 years in uniform, I fought and bled for this country. I believe with every fiber in protecting this exceptional way of life. We should be doing essentially three things. Number one is we should be helping the Iraqi armed forces and the Kurds to defeat the Islamic State in Iraq. The second thing we should do is be trying to forge an agreement between the government of Syria and these rebels. And the third point we should be doing is, look, I mentioned we're going to keep our country safe. And, the intelligence community assesses at the moment that while the Islamic State has expressed a desire to attack our country, they don't yet possess the capability. We need to continue to monitor that, and if we learn of any specific credible threats against our country, we need to take action to protect our people.
Couple quick social policy questions, Congressman. If it was up to you, would you defund Planned Parenthood?
Look, we tried that in 2011. It didn't work. And the reason why we pursued it is a belief that, that public dollars shouldn't go for abortions. Abortion's a very difficult issue. Our district, I've listened very carefully to where we're at, and any woman who finds herself in a situation like this has all of our empathy and concern. And look, at the end of the day, I think that abortion is a private choice between a woman and her doctor. I think that this district supports limits on abortion, no late-term abortion. So, the issue for Planned Parenthood was one of taxpayer dollars for abortions. Going forward, what we need to do is work together. Planned Parenthood has expressed a desire to make sure the taxpayer dollars are not used for abortion, so there's got to be some way we can get on the same common ground to address the common issue.
Finally, if it was up to you, Congressman, would your opponent be legally allowed to marry in the state of New York?
I wish him well. In the debate the other night, I mentioned that my wife and I, Mary Jo, we've been married over 18 years and just had our anniversary. And as I told Sean, it only gets better from here. My belief is that we should have civil unions for all, and that marriage should really be up to religious institutions.
Well, Congressman, I certainly wish you the best of luck in a couple weeks. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Rich, and God bless all the viewers out there.
Up next, we'll hear from Congressman Gibson's Democratic challenger, Sean Eldridge, after a quick break.